Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today we're diving into the life of former President Jimmy Carter,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting because his recent passing has kind of sparked this, this wave of reflection and looking back at his life.
Yeah.
And we have some really fascinating excerpts from a news article covering his state funeral, and I think it's giving us this unique chance to explore not just his time as president, but this incredible life he lived before and after.
What's really interesting to me is how much emphasis there is on his post-presidency.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really see that often, right? This focus on what a president did after leaving the White House.
It's almost like, the story really begins after the presidency ends.
Yeah.
And I want to unpack that. But I think to understand the man, we have to go back to his roots, right?
Yeah.
The peanut farmer from Plains, Georgia.
Right.
What made this seemingly ordinary background so extraordinary?
Well, I think that's the thing, right? I mean, his humble beginnings actually became this major asset in his political career.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. In the wake of Vietnam and Watergate, voters were just craving authenticity. Someone who, wasn't part of the Washington establishment, right?
Yeah.
And Carter fit the bill perfectly.
So he was almost like an anti-politician.
Yeah.
Like someone who promised a fresh start.
Exactly. His honest talk and this outsider status really resonated with voters.
Huh.
But there's this other layer to his story that often gets overlooked.
Okay.
And that's his career before politics.
Oh, right. The Navy. I remember reading something about that.
Exactly. He was a naval officer and a trained engineer. And this background, I think, instilled in him this deep sense of duty and this problem-solving mentality that he kind of carried throughout his life.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So he wins the presidency in 1976. What kind of world was he stepping into?
Ooh, I think economic turmoil.
Yeah.
The late 1970s were a rough ride.
Yeah.
Inflation was soaring, interest rates were climbing, and you had the energy crisis in full swing.
Oof. Not exactly a dream scenario for a new president.
Right.
So did this have any bearing on the choices he made in office?
Absolutely. I mean, these challenges shaped much of his presidency.
Okay.
So he pursued these energy conservation policies, right? He wanted to lessen America's reliance on foreign oil. But of course, he faced pushback from various sides.
Yeah.
Domestically, he focused on these social issues, championing inclusivity in a way that hadn't really been seen before.
And, Andrew Young, his close friend and advisor who later became UN ambassador,
Right.
often spoke about this. He said Carter appointed more black individuals to positions of power, judges, government officials, than any previous president.
And Young always emphasized that it wasn't just about hitting a quota.
Okay.
It was that Carter deeply believed in equal opportunity.
Yeah.
And he actively sought out these diverse voices and perspectives.
That commitment to inclusivity, it's a recurring theme in Carter's life, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. You see it in his personal relationships, his political choices, even the work of the Carter Center later on.
Speaking of his presidency, we can't talk about Carter without mentioning the Camp David Accords.
Right.
This peace agreement between Israel and Egypt, brokered by Carter himself.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a major
They're
achievement.
huge. What's remarkable is these two nations had been locked in conflict for decades.
Yeah.
And Carter's ability to bring Begin and Sadat together to find this common ground and forge this lasting peace agreement. I mean, it's truly remarkable.
Were the Accords immediately hailed as a success? Or was there some skepticism at the time?
Oh, there were definitely critics.
Okay.
Some argued that, Carter was too idealistic, that he was prioritizing human rights over, strategic interests.
Okay.
But the fact that the peace treaty has held for over 4 decades, right?
Yeah.
That speaks to the significance of his achievement.
So a bold move that ultimately paid off.
Yeah.
I guess that's a recurring theme with Carter. He wasn't afraid to take risks, even if it meant facing criticism.
You're right. He was deeply principled, and he stuck to his convictions even when it was politically unpopular. But of course, his presidency wasn't without its struggles.
Yeah.
I mean, the Iran hostage crisis, for example, that cast a long shadow over his final year in office.
And it's interesting, though, that even with those challenges, when people talk about Carter's legacy, the focus seems to shift away from his time as president.
It's almost as if his presidency is just a chapter in this much larger story.
So what happens in that next chapter? What is it about Carter's post-presidency that makes it so exceptional?
Well, that's what's so fascinating, right? Instead of fading into the background, Carter embraced this second act that was even more impactful than his first.
Wow.
And that's where we'll really see the depth of his character and the lasting power of his values.
All right, so let's talk about something bigger. What did Carter do after leaving the White House that has people so captivated?
So in 1982, he and Rosalind established the Carter Center in Atlanta.
Okay.
And it wasn't just, some symbolic gesture.
Right.
This became a powerhouse for global activism, tackling issues that many thought were impossible to solve.
Yeah.
Tackling these really tough issues.
Give me an example. What kind of issues are we talking about?
Well, they went after guinea worm disease in Africa.
Okay.
This was this parasitic infection that was debilitating millions of people.
Yeah.
And the Carter Center, they didn't just throw money at the problem.
Okay.
They devised this a multi-pronged approach, working directly with communities to change behaviors and implement these preventative measures.
So a hands-on approach.
Exactly.
Not just writing checks from afar.
No, they trained local volunteers, distributed water filters, and really focused on education.
Yeah.
And the results were staggering.
Yeah.
Guinea worm cases plummeted by over 99%.
Oh.
It's on the verge of being eradicated.
Really?
Largely thanks to their efforts.
That's incredible. And this was just one of their initiatives.
Oh, there's so much more.
Yeah.
They mediated conflicts in places like Ethiopia and Sudan.
Okay.
Helping warring factions find common ground.
Wow.
They monitored elections in emerging democracies, ensuring fairness and transparency.
Okay.
They even helped rebuild infrastructure and healthcare systems in war-torn countries.
It sounds like they were taking on the world's toughest challenges, the ones that most people would shy away from.
And they did it with remarkable effectiveness.
Yeah.
Bill Gates, whose foundation has partnered with the Carter Center on various projects, said that Carter, quote, set a very high bar for presidents by using his influence to do so much good in the world.
It's a far cry from the image of the retired politician enjoying a quiet life of leisure.
Yeah.
It seems like Carter was busier than ever after leaving the White House.
He was tireless.
Wow.
And he wasn't just lending his name to these initiatives. He was deeply involved in every aspect of the work. I mean, there are countless stories of him rolling up his sleeves and working side by side with people on the ground.
Yeah.
Whether it was building homes with Habitat for Humanity or teaching Sunday school in his hometown.
There's that hands-on approach again.
Yeah.
It's clear he wasn't interested in just being a figurehead.
Not at all. He believed in leading by example.
Okay.
And that's part of what makes his story so compelling.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about achieving a certain status or accumulating wealth. It was about using his platform, his experiences, and his faith to make a tangible difference in the lives of others.
His faith seems to be this constant thread throughout his life.
Yeah.
How did that inform his work, both as a politician and as a humanitarian?
Well, Carter was a devout Baptist, and his faith was deeply intertwined with his values and his worldview.
Okay.
He often spoke about the importance of compassion, forgiveness, and serving those in need.
Right.
And these principles guided his actions. Yeah.
Whether he was negotiating peace treaties or building homes for the less fortunate.
Bernice King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter, drew a parallel between her father and Carter, saying they were both driven by this deep and abiding faith.
It's a powerful comparison.
Yeah.
Both men were committed to social justice, to fighting for the oppressed, and to creating a more equitable world.
Right.
And they both faced criticism and opposition.
Yeah.
Yet they never wavered in their convictions.
It's striking how Carter's life seems to transcend these political divides.
Yeah.
Even his funeral was attended by former presidents from both parties.
Right.
Something we rarely see these days.
It's a testament to the respect he earned across the political spectrum.
Yeah.
He was a man of principle, a man of faith, and a man of action. And while he certainly had his critics, his commitment to serving others, to building bridges, and to making the world a better place is undeniable.
And through it all, he had Rosalind by his side. Yeah.
Their marriage, which lasted over 70 years, is another remarkable aspect of his story.
Their partnership was a true testament to the power of love and support. They were each other's rock, this constant source of strength and inspiration.
Okay.
And they shared this deep commitment to service.
Right.
Working side by side on countless projects throughout their lives.
It almost seems like their love story is the perfect counterpoint to the often cynical world of politics.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even amidst the chaos and division, there can be enduring love and unwavering partnership.
It's a beautiful reminder that behind the headlines and the political battles, there are these real human connections that matter. And in Carter's case, those connections played this vital role in shaping his legacy.
Okay, so we've explored Carter's early life, his presidency, his groundbreaking work with the Carter Center, and even his enduring marriage.
Yeah.
What else can we learn from this extraordinary life? What final insights might resonate with listeners as we conclude our deep dive?
Yeah, it feels like we've covered so much, you know, from peanut farms to the presidency to global humanitarian work. But with a life as full as Carter's, I'm sure there are still lessons to be learned. What stand out to you as we wrap up this deep dive?
You know, I think one of the most powerful takeaways is that Carter's story is ultimately a story about character.
Okay.
It's about integrity, humility, and this unwavering commitment to doing what he believed was right.
Yeah.
Even when it was difficult or unpopular.
You know, it's easy to get caught up in the political battles or the policy debates.
Right.
But you're right, at its core, this is about the kind of person he was. And that seems to be reflected in the way people remember him.
Exactly. Whether you agreed with his politics or not.
Yeah.
There's this widespread recognition of his decency, his empathy, and his genuine desire to make the world a better place.
And that's a theme that runs through everything we've discussed today.
From shaking hands with the kitchen staff during his campaign to building houses with Habitat for Humanity in his 90s.
Yeah.
It's clear that his commitment to service wasn't just a talking point. It was a way of life.
It's also fascinating to see how his faith played such a central role in shaping his worldview and actions. He often spoke about the importance of forgiveness, compassion, and loving your neighbor.
Which, when you think about it, are pretty radical concepts in the often cutthroat world of politics.
Absolutely. He brought those values into every sphere of his life.
Yeah.
From his dealings with foreign leaders to his interactions with everyday people.
Okay.
And while he was certainly a complex figure with his own flaws and shortcomings, that underlying sense of morality is undeniable.
You know, we talked earlier about the comparison Bernice King drew between her father and Carter.
Right.
It seems like they both understood that true leadership isn't just about power or position.
Yeah.
It's about inspiring others to act with love and compassion.
It's about using your platform to lift up those who are marginalized, to fight for justice and equality, and to build bridges instead of walls.
And Carter certainly didn't shy away from building bridges.
Right.
His work with the Carter Center brought together people from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds to tackle some of the world's most pressing challenges.
It's a testament to his belief in the power of collaboration and his unwavering optimism that even the most intractable problems could be solved if people work together.
We've touched on his marriage to Rosalind throughout this deep dive. It's clear that their partnership was a source of strength and support for him throughout his life.
Yeah.
What lessons can we draw from their enduring love story?
I think it speaks to the importance of having a strong foundation.
Okay.
A source of unwavering love and support that can help you navigate the inevitable storms of life.
It's a beautiful reminder that even amidst the chaos and challenges of the world, there can be enduring love and true partnership.
And in a way, I think their love story also reflects Carter's broader approach to life. A commitment to building lasting relationships, to fostering connections, and to recognizing our shared humanity.
So as we reflect on the life and legacy of Jimmy Carter, what final thought would you leave our listeners with?
I would simply encourage them to think about what aspects of Carter's journey resonate most deeply with them.
Okay.
What lessons can we learn from his life? How can we, in our own way, embody those values of service, compassion, and integrity?
That's a powerful question, and one that I hope our listeners will ponder as they continue their own journeys.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the life and legacy of Jimmy Carter.
Of course, it's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.